Here it says we're waiting for a guest, but in reality, we are not waiting for a guest. I have that there so I can have a guest. I'm going to pull that down a little low so all this sound reducing and improving equipment will be less visible to you. So welcome to the 98-Year-Old Man podcast. You all know that the 98-Year-Old Man title is a joke taken from a clickbait campaign using my picture and my material to get them clicks. It was good because they got 30 million, and so it was real exposure for me. But I'm of the opinion that they need to be a little bit more careful about intellectual property in this new world. In this new world we live in, yes, today in the new world, the following things happened, and some of them were good, and some of them were not. But let's get back to the original point of this podcast. It wasn't originally the point, but it became that because I decided I want to run for president, not so much to be president as to expose certain ideas to the electorate, that we control this country. We are the people. And we, the people, can demand certain things. And one thing that we don't have is equal voice. An equal voice or an equal chance for a voice in the Congress. And the reason for that is because of the way the enumeration has changed over the years. I'm going through this. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. No, I'm not 98 years old. That's a clickbait thing that somebody used, and I use it as a joke title. So over the years, it's changed from 30,000, one representative per 30,000 people. Now, there was a problem with it in the middle of the 19th century and in the 20th century, simply because of clerical work. That doing so much for a larger body would be more difficult, especially in the days when copies were made by hand. We would have had a whole county in Virginia dedicated to copying things. So, whereas now we got people on K Street, and etc. So the enumeration was changed over time because it's just a rule Congress can change. It's not set in stone in the Constitution. They give them an out that may be changed by these guys. I forget specifically what the language is. But now we can handle any size Congress. It wouldn't matter. It's like the army, you organize people in some regimented system. It doesn't have to be totally regimented. It doesn't have to be regimented in how it decides things. But as far as having an organization that, a chain of command kind of thing, that's an important part of any organization. Somebody has to be in charge in the end. So we got into the habit of having more and more people represented by a single congressman. So a single congressman, now can represent like millions of people. I think the average over all of them is 740,000 people. And that's people, not voters. It's people. It's based on the census. That's why I get a kick out of people when they're like, "Oh, the census." It's like, no, you wouldn't have any vote if it wasn't for the census. So we can accommodate as many as we need. And people would say, "Oh, I can't do that, blah, blah, because of this, that, and the other thing." And I'm saying, wait a second. How many staff members are there in the Congress today? It's along the order of 14,000. Now, a whole bunch of those are people you just can't get rid of. The people who take care of the cars and mopping the floors and all the stuff that goes on about maintaining the Washington, D.C. Capitol, the Congress's quarters, all of their perks and such. So it takes about 14,000 workers, staff people. And now of the 14,000 staff people, about 8 or 9,000 are political staff people. They're people that work directly for the congressman or for the leadership. Why is this? Why do we have such a big staff? Because they're dealing with such a big pool. Well, if we had 10,000 congressmen instead of 435 congressmen and 8,000 staffers, we could get something done, because a congressman has real authority. A congressman can say, "Yeah, I'm from Congress, and I'm coming to look at your agency." They can have that kind of power. Plus, the business of, "Oh, there's too many of them, you'll never be able to get a consensus." That's just it. You would be able to get consensus much more easily, because there's a whole lot of people that can be convinced. There's a larger pool of people, and it's also a larger pool of straight-on heads, because you're going to vote for the guy in your district of 30,000 people. You're going to vote for the guy that you trust most in that 30,000 people that's running. So it just brings us closer to our Congress. And that's the important part, because Congress is where they spend all the money. They're in charge of spending money. They say, "Okay, we appropriate this for this," and that's it. And we find the money somehow. And that's what we do, usually a tax. And the tax code is crazy, because it's pages and pages and, 4 feet tall, or whatever the hell it is, or a big giant file for sure. There's no reason for that. If you're going to have loopholes, well, you can make them pretty clear. You could say, "Look, here's the loophole department." Just have one at a time listed, so everybody knew about them. But you don't know about them because they're hidden inside these giant tax books that go on forever. We need, here's your income. Here's whatever other tax we collect. And then we collect a lot of them. Liquor, guns, lawyers, guns and money, for firearms, for tobacco. Jeepers, vapes probably now, and now weed, and well, not the federal government. That'll change soon, I hope, because it's like stupid for them. All these states going, "Yeah, sure you can." And the federal government saying, "No, but you can't bring it interstate, or else you're committing a federal crime." Dun, 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 dun. The FBI is going to come and get you. Dun, 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 dun. Well, watch out. I think that's Dragnet, actually. But because of that, you have 10,000 people at your disposal to do work, real work, on behalf of the people, to know exactly what they're talking about, because they've been there and they talk to the people. They talk to the people that run the things. They understand what's going on everywhere. Because let's face it, we have ceded a huge amount of Congress's power to agencies, to the executive branch. And it's time to claw a little bit of that back, because you don't want the executive to have that kind of power. It wasn't a weak president, but it was a pretty balanced operation. One of the stupidest things they did was in 1974 take away the right of the president to withhold funds that are being spent stupidly, because they wanted a fight with Nixon. Nixon was like the Trump of that era. Nothing Nixon did could be nice. He was tricky Dick. He was a bad guy. He didn't look good in makeup. All of that. I met him once, and the thing I was most impressed with was how easily he spoke with 3 young college students who just happened to meet him on the tarmac of the Burlington International Airport and shake his hand, because we said, "Hey, Mr. President, Mr. President, Mr. President." And he stopped in his tracks, turned around, came back to see us. My roommate in college was from the Ivory Coast, and he was the one who wanted to go over to see the president. So here we are out on the tarmac, and the president's coming over to talk to us, and Yed is standing there like, this is the president. Yeah, that's the president. And he came over and shook all of our hands. What can I do for you, young man? And I said, oh, we just wanted to introduce you to our roommate from the Ivory Coast, Yed. Oh, I've never been to the Ivory Coast, but I know. And he started reeling off facts and figures about the Ivory Coast. And Yed was like there going, this is pretty impressive. Yeah, I mean, of course, he's shaking the hands with the most powerful man in the world because he's at a little airport in Vermont. But, you know, it was real impressive what a political skills he had. And he was a little shorter than I thought he'd be. I thought he'd be taller, you know. But anyway, so Nixon was pilloried. I mean, yeah, he sent some burglars to go break into the Democratic offices. Like that had never been done before. And it was a crime. It was a crime because he had to cover it up. You know, why did he have to cover it up? I don't know. He had the tape machines, and I'll tell you, I wish they left those tape machines in the office and said, okay, we're going to be recorded, and then you can listen to them 10 years afterwards or whatever. But it's good to know what the hell was going on in those rooms. This is the history of this. It used to be all on paper because they used to write letters to each other. They don't do that no more. If they do, it's a text message or an email. So we're losing all of that. And there's no reason why they shouldn't be willing to record everything that they do as public servants and put it away for 10 years and give them some kind of amnesty if something really bad comes out. And, you know, whatever. Or, you know, we can board of that somehow. But that would need to be done. But the real thing is to make the enumeration original. One congressperson for every 30,000 people. It would be a huge Congress. It would be like that Star Wars Congress. But you don't have to, it can be totally virtual. There's no reason for them to sit down in a room together. And if they need to, there's plenty of stadiums around that would accommodate them easily. And for the cash, they'd love it. Yeah. So how do I feel on supporting Ukraine? I'm a little torn by the whole Ukraine thing. But when I see all the stuff that was going on underneath, all the baloney, I mean, golly, they let them take Crimea. So what the hell did they think that was going to signal to them? Oh, these guys, a pushover. Same thing in Syria. They did the same damn thing. Red line. This is a red line. And where? How red was it? I don't know. Nobody even remembers the red line anymore. Yeah, and now, you know, they're toying with us in the air. Because, you know, technically we're not supposed to be there because we're not allies of Syria. Thank God we're not. Yeah. So I am torn a little about the whole way that the Ukrainian war got started and the complicity of what parties in it. You know, one of the most appalling things to me that I've seen in publicly acknowledged was that whole business with Joe Biden where he threatened the Ukrainian government that we would withhold aid, which is impoundment of funds, by the way. It's not allowed. It hasn't been since 1974. They can't just do that. Anyway, that Joe was proudly telling this story of a friggin' quid pro quo. And it was like, wow, really? It was clear. It was like, you get rid of them or it was like the mafia or something. You know, I'll make you an offer, get refused. You get rid of that or you won't get no $1 billion from my president. Why? The president said, you call him. It's like, what, are you kidding me? It's like a cheap gangster movie. Good God. And everybody was just like, oh, yeah. Oh, that was good. You got the guy fired. You know how to leverage America. And it's like, oh, we used to be the people that didn't do shit like that. And now we're not. Maybe we did it, But if we did it with real far underground, and it was done by guys with cloaks and daggers, now it's like, oh yeah, we can do this. It's like, I don't know. The old business about things being off the record, when reporters would be told, well, this is off the record, so they put it off the record. Now it's like you can't get anything off the record because, somebody's gonna try and exploit it and put it into a tabloid or whatever. So all of that kind of integrity, that when they talk about journalistic integrity and all that, that's what they're talking about. Stuff that used to be observed that is not. It's now observed in the breach, as they say. In other words, mostly missed. Yeah, the breach, the hole. So here we go. That's the biggest thing, really, is the Congress, changing the Congress, making them responsible. I mean, and saying sort of after the first, I think it's only going to take 2 cycles to replace an entire Congress. So that's within one presidential term. And that by the second term, the end of the second term, that the new Congress, the new organization of the House of Representatives would be implemented. In the meantime, they'd pretty much be on committees trying to figure out how to make this work. Because it will work. The fact of them having a seat in Washington, that like they do anything there other than vote, that's all they do is vote in those seats. There isn't deep discussion going on there. Maybe the standing in the aisles, maybe. But I don't know at the desks. Anyway, so it's not important that they have that. I'd say you could probably operate with all the majority leader people and all of their all the committees, and then all of the minority leaders and all of their committee members, their ranking members. So they'd have seats. You'd have probably a captain from every state, because it needs to be organized a little bit. So you'd have a captain of the delegation in the state. And there'd probably be 2 because there'll be 2 parties. Or there may be 4. Depends on how many parties they got. Whatever it is, you'd have those captains. And those captains would get seats. So you still have the representation of the Congress, of the 50 states and the leadership and all that. They'll get seats, obviously. And so the rest of the seats can be, ad hoc. When they need to go down and talk on the floor of Congress and on the record. Because they don't really need to talk on the record anymore either. They just hand them the paper and say, publish this in the Congressional Record, which I think is a little odd, because it hasn't really been in the Congress or anybody paying attention to it. If you want to pass, commendations, making this city or that city, that's fine. That should be like a 2-word document. They ought to come up with a new name for that crap. Those honorific kind of resolutions they do. Anyway, so all of that stuff could still exist completely. However you want to use the rest of the seats, you can. I think that general organization would be right. Now, the reason I'm saying as a president couldn't enact this agenda. He needs the help of the Congress to do that, because Congress is the only one can change the rules of Congress. Plus, they can only do it at the opening of a new Congress. So they could do it the first year, and the third year, and then the 4th year, I guess, which would be the first year for the next president. But it would allow us, first of all, just to get a handle on this machine, this gigantic machine we call the federal government. We need 10,000 people with the power of Congress to be looking at these agencies and be looking at what they do. And we want people who are competent to do that. And I would think in all of the districts of this nation that there are communities of interest that know everything they need to know about any little esoteric piece. And finding that and putting that together is much easier with a 10,000 seat Congress. And they all can't be bought that easily. You got to buy lunch for 10,000 people? Good heavens. Yeah. So bribing them becomes harder. It also makes campaigns cheaper. They won't be spending millions and millions of dollars on a campaign to convince some percentage of 30,000 people to vote for them. It's not a large number. And it means also that citizen politicians could emerge. New leaders, young people that want to go do this job. They don't want to do it forever. They just want to go do this job and then go off into their other research and other interests, because they're going to have so many jobs and they're going to have assistants. They're going to have robots, man. You're going to have robots all over the place in a few years. So this is why I think that the changing in size is an important thing. We're going to have to make some hard decisions about how we're going to run a society where labor is nearly free, and we finally get to the vaunted recyclable, more renewable energy thing. And right now we're producing, 4% of the nation's capacity on solar on people's roofs. That sounds like a good return on investment. Things take a long time. So, yeah. Well, that Russia and Europe, that whole thing, that's been going on for so long. Yeah, I think we need to stand with the Europeans on that. Yes, and if that's, if it's going to cost us money, it's not like, I know it's jobs. That's really what it is. This whole business of making weapons is a whole lot of people working. So, I'm not crazy about them making weapons, but I'm also not crazy about Russia just coming into the country and saying, hey, this is ours, because there's some Russians live here. It's like the Sudetenland all over again. And I don't understand why people don't see it that way. It's like, oh, yeah, well, it's just a little place where Germans live. We're just going to take off that little place. Not Poland and Czechoslovakia. Yeah. Yeah, this is what I mean. It's an incremental thing. And the Europeans are seeing this. They're all scared to death because that's how it started with the other guy. And, oh, yeah, just a little piece of land. Yeah. Oh, peace in our time. Sure. Oh, Lord. Anyway, so where else is it going with this? Oh, yeah, I'd like to restore the power of presidential empowerment. Empowerment is to be able to stop spending money. That's what. No, I'm not going to spend that money anymore. He's the executive. He's the chief executive. Every other chief executive of anything in the world has the power to stop spending money. They have the power to say, no, that program is not working. We're going to stop it because we're not going to put that money into that anymore. We're not going to, put good money after bad. So I would like the president to have that authority. He used to have it from Jefferson on. I don't think Washington needed it because he was like they wouldn't try to fool good old George. And George was a great example to us all that, 4 years is enough. Thank you very much. Two times, 4 years, no problem. I'm done with this. I don't want to be king. See ya. Yeah, that whole thing. So that's one of the things I don't like about saying Washingtonian, because I don't want to besmirch George's name. Washington can. So I'm come up with a new term for it. It's Wadiko. Wadiko. And if you need a lost consonant, you put an L on there. What do you call? Yeah, it's the Washington District of Columbia, and it's just because I don't want to besmirch Washington's name. I think there are some things in our pantheon of founders, and slave owners, all of they're products of their time. I'm certainly not going to take them to task for being like their neighbors. I understand, and there were plenty of people who had moral positions on that. That aside, he did a good job, and in that mold, that's what I'm trying to do. Running for president is just to put an example out there that says this is what we could be doing, what maybe we should be doing. The first thing I would want to do as a presidential proclamation is change the name of the Department of Defense, because to me that was always like the Ministry of Peace of 1984. They were in charge of war. Well, we used to call it the War Department. I'm all for that. I'm all for also bringing the Navy back as the Navy Department, but they can be part of the War Department. I think the reason it wasn't was because they do take care of things like international trade and guarding the sea lanes and stuff, guaranteeing free trade, free travel, passage, so safe passage. And they've been doing that since, World War II. That was like a tacit agreement with everyone in the world that we'll keep the lanes of the sea lanes open. All the lanes, don't worry, we will. And that's what they've been doing since that time. It's cost us a lot of money. I mean, really, in the United States, we have a huge Navy. And much as you'll hear them, talking about how, we need more Navy. It's like, the Chinese are building a Navy. We got to worry about that. Yeah, in some respects we do. And also because we put all our eggs in one basket with these nuclear carriers and things like that. Like the new Ford is like, it's like a frigging city. Well, it's only going to take one missile to really do some bad damage to it. It's a tactical job. So, maybe it's not so great that way. But in many ways it is, because they can deliver an airport. Anywhere in the world, we're going to bring you an airport. And it's full of bombs and bullets and maybe some other stuff. Electricity, that's right. Yes, and planes. So helicopters and all of that, which in disaster time, it's great. Here we go. Let's bring in the nuclear carrier that can power the whole damn city. That's great. And make water and do all of that stuff. It's a great thing. But there's a whole thing about the idea that I am going to run for president. I need to get the documents signed sometime before this. I forget what the date is, in the next year. It's not this year. I mean, everybody thinks of these presidential races is so frigging early. I think you should talk about them, but I don't think we really need to do all this positioning and money spending. Good heavens. Couldn't we just have a few people talk? Let's put them on television and have them just sit there and talk, and we'll get an idea who they are without spending a whole lot of money on advertising. Anyway, that's what I'd like to see. That ain't going to happen. And as far as me being able to win this thing, is totally crazy. That's just don't even think that way. The idea is to get people talking about these ideas about getting a hold of our government, because it is out of our control now. Somebody else can run it. It can be manipulated in many ways. So if we expand our representation, we stand a much better chance of being able to get a hold of it again, get the reins on it. Because it will be, literally, it will be 10,000 people working on this problem of reforming our government and making sure that the people have have a deep say in how this all works. A congressman has power. A congressman set to, well, look, we're gonna invest. We're gonna take a look at every agency. They talk about doing that. I put who the hell did he put in charge of efficiency? Oh, Al Gore. I put an Al Gore in charge of government efficiency, and he's going to find all the waste, fraud, and abuse and make it all go away. He has a magic wand. Yeah, that doesn't happen. You can't do that, because they don't have 10,000 people to go do the work, to go and investigate every little cog and thing. But if we had a 10,000 person Congress, oh yes, we would have time. And because instead of what we have now with our Congress is they spend a year running for office, and they spend a year doing the bidding of their party. It's all top down now. It's not. It was much more organic in the olden days. They were organically, the parties were more close to the folks. Now they're not. They're only close to the rich folks. And it's because they control such a large span of control with such a small 435 people and 100 senators. I mean, you can see that there's ways to manipulate that more easily, and points of inflection more easily accessed. So, but then you'll have 10,000. No, you won't, because they'll be strong but weak outside of the area. There's a whole thing about the way Congress works and the committees and seniority and all that stuff. So that will have effect on it, but it will be over those 10,000 people. And as I said, 10,000 people is a lot of people to set to a problem. And the problem of what the hell is our government doing is one that they should be able to tell us. That's their job. They're supposed to represent us. If they don't know what the hell's going on, then how are they representing us? They don't know what the hell's going on. They depend on all these agencies that they're telling us the truth. It's incredible to me that there's no check on that. The check on that is supposed to be the Congress and the committees in the Congress. And they have their hearings and you're seeing them. But how effective are they? Well, if they had 10,000 people working on this, it'll change it. It really will. There'll be more work done. There'll be more stones uncovered, more things under rocks. We'll see, less corruption, fewer lies. Yeah, when it's numeric, it should be fewer. This is a pet peeve. It's totally stupid, but I have one. We all have pet peeves. It's a good thing to have a pet peeve. Something you can stroke at night and it purrs for you. Anyway, here you see a lot of these things, and also now this Department of State. Oh, isn't that an interesting place? It is totally at the top. I'm only, Terry, please don't take me as seriously correcting you. It's just fewer lies. Just because in my mind, it's like if I'm talking about volume, it's less. If I'm talking about quantity, it's fewer. It's just, it's nuns. That's what it is. It's all nuns' fault. Anyway, drilling that stuff into my head in grammar school. That's why they called it grammar school. You knew your grammar when you left. So where was I? Oh, so the whole power thing, that they spend so much time getting elected and then very little time doing the work of the people, what their districts are truly interested in, and more about, whatever bill the party has put together. And it really is odd that this is the way this happens now. It's not really the individual congressman introducing a bill. That's the party introducing a bill. Occasionally it's an original thing, totally original thing, but very rarely, and it's oftentimes it's a seniority thing. Thought it up, even though it might have been junior guys who thought it up. So senior guys get the credit. It's politics, baby. Politics is the art of governing, and it is an art. I just want to have more artists. That's what I think. It would be better if we had more artists. We won't touch the Senate. The Senate is 50 supposedly wise people, 2 from every state. I think this is a great idea. The Senate is a great place. They really do kind of put the screws to things when they come in, and put all of the political view of it and also the technical view of it, because there's some pretty sharp cookies in the Senate. And there's only 100 of them, so they're like 100 of the most powerful people in the world, one down from the president. So yeah, the Department of State, which I was just saying is almost completely presidential appointment, starting at the top with the State Department, the Secretary of State, and then all of the people that work for him, that don't really work for him. Because you see, in all of these departments of this Department of State, there is a Secretary of State, but then there's an Undersecretary of State, and there's probably a few Deputy Undersecretaries of State. Yeah, there's a lot of, and there might be Deputy Secretary of State. I don't know. Keeping track of the organization of Foggy Bottom is, well, that's why they call it Foggy Bottom. Yeah. So yeah, it's totally political. Now the president, it is true that the president's prerogative, one of the things that he's there for is to deal with foreign powers. That's his job. His job is to defend the nation and to do trade and stuff with the foreign powers. And he does that through his cabinet officers, of which when I was young, there were 9, and now there's 14. We have new cabinets all over the place. And some that I don't understand why we have them, that they couldn't have been handled the way they were previously on a joint administration. Health, education, and welfare is what it used to be, HUE. And then they said, well, we need a separate education department. Why? Because the teachers' unions give us a lot of money. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, and then they didn't really become the education department more than they became the loan department of the United States. Oh, yeah, we got to figure out a way to pay for all this. Yeah, I'm sorry. We need to take a real hard look at that whole department. The post office is not part of it anymore. The Postmaster General used to be one of the cabinet offices. And now they got that right out. They figured out some way to make money. I don't know how anybody's making money on it, but somebody is, believe me, because they wouldn't have given it up. So anything they give up, they say, oh, we're going to do this way now. It's because it's cheaper, done better, or they're getting paid. And maybe sometimes all three, even with paying off them. It is kind of sick. But when I saw Mr. Biden making that sort of tit for tat deal, it was like, I'm saying, and nobody talked about it. There was like, oh yeah, this is okay. Now, what? It's like, no, it's like you look like a criminal when you do stuff like that. And it was okay. And I'm surprised he didn't get chastised for it back at the White House. Because I thought Obama was a stand-up individual, but the more I hear about his administration, the more I worry about that opinion. But I'm not a good judge of character from a distance like that. I'm a good judge of character when you're in the room with me. But when you're standing away from me, it's in the many layers of insulation that I would have, yeah. So I don't know if I would get that same response I got from Nixon from Obama. Of course, then again, I couldn't get as close as we got back then. I mean, we just walked out in the tarmac. There was Secret Service guys there with their hands under their coat, and that was holding an automatic weapon. And there were 6 of them, but it was just a lot more relaxed. It's like, oh yeah, they're out here to say hello, and there's only 3 of them. So yeah. But we didn't have to go through any metal detectors or any of that stuff. That's another thing that I detest, is the lack of trust, the lack of, it's like the business with showing your ID to vote. I never used to have to show my ID to vote. Just show up and tell them my name and address. Is somebody going to come in with my name and address to vote? Well, I'd be surprised if that happened. And if it did happen, it would be like, hey, we got 2 votes here. Which one of you is real? And I can prove I'm real. So the whole ID thing, just say, and when they say, oh, you needed to cash a check and you needed to do this, it's just like a license to use a gun. It's a violation of an amendment. It is. You got to do this to vote. To exercise my franchise, my right as a person one of the people, I have to show my identification? What? I mean, when I'm registering, yeah, absolutely, you're going to need ID, and here's where I live, just so that they know the registration is legitimate. But after that, it should be just, hey, this is me. I'm from this address. I get mail there. Yeah, give me a ballot. And that's the way it used to be. And when they changed that, it just was so it just was one of those things, like what's going on with these star licenses, where we all got to have the same license. It just reminds me so much of, may I see your papers, please? Which we used to take great pride in, that we didn't have papers to cross state borders. We didn't need papers to prove who we were. We were accepted as upstanding citizens until proven otherwise. Innocent until proven guilty. The assumption of innocence, the presumption of innocence. We've lost that in the trust of that. Now, yeah, sure, people do bad shit, and you can't trust everybody. But it was just so much easier to live then when we didn't have all those restrictions. It's crazy. I really don't think you're going to stop professional ballot stuffing with IDs. I really don't. They can bring people in from out of state, and it's like, come on. It's a lot of trouble and easily seen. I mean, they know how many people vote every year and who votes and all of that. All that information's available. So I don't think we're gaining anything through all of these laws about voting. And I also have a problem, though, with, I can't find time to vote. So make the day a holiday, okay? Now everybody should be able to find time to vote. And the voting organization should make it, here's a cab, might be a robo-taxi by that time, that'll take you to the polls, and you'll get a free ride. All of that. Well, if we have that many more congressmen, can you imagine how they're going to be about their constituents being able to vote? Plus, if there's that many districts, guess what? The places where you vote get smaller and more numerous. So it's easier on the day of voting to vote. Because I'm not crazy about this, early voting and this voting and that voting and ballot pickups. And it's like, that's all these places where people can stick their fat fingers. I don't want them in there. One day is fine. Just make it easy on that one day for everybody to vote. If you have to put them on friggin' buses, I'm fine with that. And you come in, show your Charlie card, and you pick up a ballot. Drop it off before you leave. Whatever we can do that way, that's great. But this business of multiple days of voting and mail it in, ooh. If you want to mail it in, there already is the absentee ballot procedure. Or if it's too onerous, then hey, guess what? Show up on the day. If you can't, then you got to fill out the procedure. That's all. But as far as you have 30 days of early voting, and it has September and April, June, and a partridge in a pear tree. It's too many points for corruption. So anyway, that so far is the crazy platform of Bob. It's not even a platform. It's just a bunch of ragtag ideas all strung together. But some of it's been thought through, especially this expanding the House. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this and drawing pictures of the Congress and all of that, and realizing that we don't need one. We can have a Zoom Congress. And that's actually effective if they get used to working that way, that the wheels of government could get more easily moved in that way. And getting a handle on that's the next thing. I'm actually going to look at how many agencies there are and how many people there are and how long it would take, how many congressmen would need to be assigned to this. There's going to be a giant committee on this, and maybe it'll be subcommittees on other committees upon committees that report to other committees, because the fastest way to waste time is make a committee. But yeah, so I'll be looking at all of that before the next podcast. And thank you all for being here. This is a long one. I went 45 minutes. Golly. Yeah, I hope when the time comes to make a little stink about me as a candidate, I'll let you know. But for now, it's only people in New Hampshire who will be able to vote for me, because I'm not going to try and file in all 50 states. That's unless if things start to roll, then maybe I will. But as it is right now, I'm going to try and get the 1,500 signatures I need in each congressional district, which is the East Coast and the Western Mountains. So if I can do that, then I can get on the ballot, and with $100 or whatever the hell it is, there's some fee. And then I can, truly I'll be an official candidate then. And that way you can maybe get some attention from more people about what it is you're talking about and why you think it will work better. I think it'll help get money out of the system. It'll certainly help get money out of the campaigns, because they'll be much smaller. So, yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, Spooky. I appreciate that. So, I'm not trying to say I'm smarter than anybody else. I'm not trying to say that this is the answer, but I think it needs to be, our Congress needs to be bigger. It needs to be more representative. It needs to be more close to the people, because it is the people's house, and we are the people, not them. They're the representatives. We are the people. They're the people. We are. Who are they supposed to be representing? And I don't think they're representing us the way they're set up now. This whole top-down organization that has taken over the Congress since 1974, when they changed the way they do budgets, that is the root of the problem. And the other root is the fact that they can control 435 people pretty easily. 10,000, that's like riding herd on cats, And I think it'll bring a lot of really smart people into the Congress to make a difference for a couple of years, for a little while. And they're not going to make $170,000 a year like they do now. I ain't paying people $170,000 a year. You know what we pay our congressmen, our representatives in New Hampshire, and our senators for this matter? $100 a year. $100. It's a token payment. Now, maybe we can do a little better than that, because it is work, and they're going to be working hard those first few years as they try to get a handle on how this in government works, and for them to be truly responsive to their idea of their oversight responsibilities. They're spending our money, folks. They're supposed to keep track of it. They're the only ones who are supposed to keep track of it. The agencies, the president's in charge of executing, spending it. Like I said, I'd like to give him the right to stop spending if he needs to, but it's the Congress that controls all of this money stuff. So that's where it all starts if we're going to get a hold on the money. So these are little things, but I think it's a big little thing, and I think it'll be better for us. It'll make us more representative, more a republic than we are right now. Because right now there's some bad stuff going on in terms of people hating each other over politics, hating each other over ideas to govern us. Governing, the thing that we need to do to keep things orderly. And I mean orderly, not regimented, but just orderly and friendly and civil. Yeah. So this might help a whole lot. I hope so. Anyway, my friends, thank you very much for listening to me for such a long time. The 98-year-old man who really is only 71. And we'll see you again on episode 9. I hope. See ya. I never did have a guest. I should have had one. Where's the turn it off button? Are they going to tell me? Nope, there isn't. Maybe I do it up here. End stream. There we go.